Well, hello and welcome to our reading of Homer Iliad Book 3, and we got up to the section here where still Helen and Priam are looking down upon the Achaeans, and Priam has pointed out Odysseus. Helen says a little bit about Odysseus, and then Antenor pipes up and says, "Oh yes, I know him." And we finished off with this here where he says, so he and Menelaus, them I entertained and I showed kindness to in the halls, and I got to know the Fuane, the appearance of both of them and their shrewd thoughts. And we were up to 209. But when Emicthen, this is from that then Bethazan ending we've seen several times, so this actually is a third person plural. So when they, it probably should be a dual, but it's third person plural here. So, but when they mingled with, literally, so when they met with, perhaps, the Trojans, the N goes with the mignumi. This is a preverb here with mignumi. So among the Trojans gathered together. So when they came, had social intercourse with the Trojans gathered together. Stantone is a genitive participle, and it's part of a genitive absolute, but the outone is suppressed. And it's really a dual, but it's a plural here. So the two of them, that is Menelaus and Odysseus, when they were standing there, when the two of them were standing, Menelaus, hupereken, now this is from huper, the epsilon is lengthened to an epsilon iota for the sake of meter, and this ek is from echo, and it's unaugmented here. When the two of them were standing, Menelaus, we get a men balanced by de here, Menelaus were surpassed, perhaps, overtopped, sometimes translated, so surpassed him in height, in respect of his broad shoulders, so we get accusative of respect here. And both of them, but balancing the men there, when the two of them were sitting, this is a dual participle here, when the two of them were sitting, Odysseus was geraoteros. This is a funny word, it means more majestic, it's a comparison here. So Odysseus, so when they were sitting, Odysseus was more majestic. But when, indeed, Hufino, this is to weave a web. So it's, perhaps you could say, when they were spinning words and ideas, passing among everybody, among all. Atoi, in fact, lovely little particle there, so in fact it was Menelaus was speaking, it's imperfect without augment, was speaking fluently. This is an adverb here. You get these adverbs ending in dane in Greek. So Menelaus was speaking fluently. Para, few words on the one hand, and then probably balanced here by the Allah. So a man of perhaps a few words, but speaking very shrilly. Normally when people speak shrilly, it's very annoying, but in Homer, when good heralds speak with a shrill voice, and here we get this ligio's adverb here. Since Polymuthos, he was not a long speaker, he didn't have many words to say, nor was he this funny word here, rambling, I think it is translated. So you see that epos root in here, and the harmatano missing the mark, so perhaps wandering about. So he didn't wander around in his speech, so he wasn't rambling. And indeed he was Husteros after him in race. That is, he was younger than him, and he was the younger. But when Odysseus, who is Polymetis, very wily, but when in fact Odysseus, wily Odysseus, and Ixain, this is optative here because it's after this when, so it's very vague, so it's almost whenever, but there's no an here. So when Odysseus might, well, aiso is to dart. This is from aiso is the verb. The double sigma turning psi in the aorist optative here. So it means to get up, or to leap up, to perhaps jump up. So when indeed wily Odysseus jumped up, stasken. Now we get a couple of these iterative forms of the verb, where you take the root of the verb, you add in a sk. We get one here, you get id, ide, and there's the sk. Another one a bit further, one down here, ekeske. And it's used for something that happens, you do frequently. So he used, translated as something like, he used to stand, and he used to look. Now hupai is odd here. It's to look up, but pexas from aorist participle here from paganumi, having fixed his eyes, kata ktonos. He used to look up. So having fixed his eyes onto the ground, he used to look up, perhaps almost askance. So in other words, he sort of gave this idea of being slightly shy or perhaps cunning. Enoma, now this is from nomao. It's something like to handle, perhaps to direct here. So not directing his scepter. So he directed the scepter neither opiso, neither back nor propranes, nor in front. So he didn't move it around, this is very interesting, because this gives us some idea about when people were declaiming in the assembly, they held the scepter. And obviously one of the techniques of declaiming was to move the scepter around, to use it as a sort of prop. But here it says that Odysseus, he directed the scepter neither back nor neither behind nor in front, but ekesken, another one of these iterative forms from echo, he used to hold it astemphes, so stiffly or tightly. Like to a man who is aidre. This is a dative here. This is alpha privative plus this idr, root of knowledge. So a man without any, who's not very bright, basically, without any knowledge. So Odysseus gives the impression, although he's very wily, he gives the impression of being rather naive and simple, but of course he's not, he's very cunning. Phaes, and you would say, with the ke. So you would say that he was, this is emini from for anai, to be a certain zakoton. Now a zakoton, something like surly. The za is original dia, intensitive, and the kotos is anger. So it's someone who's ill-mannered or surly. So you would say that he was some sort of ill-mannered person, autos, and probably goes with the phaes. So you would quite rightly say that he is some kind of ill-mannered person and aphrona, witless, without any wit. without any sense. But when, so he gives the impression of being a simple-minded one without any, I think, fancy about him. But when there might be a voice, there might indeed be a great voice from his chest, from his breast. So whenever he opened his mouth, basically, he was like to, in his words, were the words resembling nifadesi, dative plural, this is snows, Kaim emirasi, this is in the day of winter. So on a winter's, so his words were like snow on a winter's day. Nor then would any mortal, now this is again optative from erisdo, to strive, to compete, so no other mortal would then compete with Odysseus, nor at that time, looking at his appearance, would we be angry at, from agamai. Agamai's got a range of meanings, and one of them is here to be angry at. Nor at that time, in fact, would anyone looking at his appearance be angry at Odysseus, Hody, in this way. So, difficult little section, this bit here, I think. It's giving the impression that Odysseus, although he appears to be very naive and simple, he's actually an amazingly clever speaker. And we'll finish that section there.